are back with day 2 of my G1 CLIMAX 34 coverage, recapping, reviewing all of the nights of the G1 CLIMAX 34 here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast. I just happen to be Mr. Warren Hayes, and I just happened to wrap up watching today's edition of the CLIMAX of the G1. No one says of the CLIMAX; they say the G1. Have you noticed that? Because in the vernacular, you could just say in the CLIMAX, but that would also be very weird to come on a podcast and say, I just finished watching the CLIMAX. Anywho, moving on. We're going to be talking about the July 21st show, day 2 or night 2, depending on, what time zone you're in. Or whatever whichever way you prefer to see it. I think the vernacular, if we stick to the vernacular, usually it is nights. We talk about night 1, night 2, etc. Well, this is night 2 of the G1. So listen, very briefly, before we go any further, just the regular rigmarole. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe if it's the first time you're here. That way you won't miss a minute of my coverage. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, you can subscribe there as well if you want to. You can also, leave some ratings and reviews and all that stuff. But I don't want to dwell too much on that. You all know the deal, the routine. Yes, I'm a growing podcast, and I could always use your help. But we want to talk about wrestling. This is what we're talking about. We want to get into the nitty gritty. So let's dive right into it. Let's start talking about this second night of action of the G1 CLIMAX. Once again from Osaka, Japan. Once again from the EDION Arena. According to what I've been able to gather here, the attendance 2,545 people were in attendance. Compare that to yesterday's attendance, which was, reports sort of vary, but let's say about 4,200. I think I had said 4,177. Let's round it up to 4,200 because there's been, just some slightly differentiating reports. That is a 2,000 person drop over one night. Now, I was sitting here yesterday and I was near 2,000. Okay, again, close to 2,000, and I was sitting here yesterday, and I was, I thought yesterday's show was very, very, very good. I thought it was a tremendous show, and I sat here saying, well, you know what, with such a good show, maybe with word of mouth, it will, maybe it'll turn into a really good show for today, for night 2, since night 1 was really good. Not much to complain about, unless you really want, unless Jake Lee comes up on your radar. There's nothing much that you can really that you can sit here and say, no, this was a bad show. It was far from it. So I sat here and posited, hey, maybe this will have a positive impact on tickets for night 2. I guess not. I guess you must never underestimate the power of a really good main event, which yesterday, one that has the star power. Because yesterday we had Naito and Shingo in the main event. Today the main event was Yota, Tsuji, and David Finlay. Neither of which are proven main event draws, and maybe the rest of the card wasn't full up of these great main event style dream match, exciting matchups. Because one could argue that in New Japan right now, the exciting matches, the exciting prospects for matches, they're not there yet, because they're trying to build up this new generation of people that will create the exciting matchups of the future, even in, over the next couple of years and so on and so forth. So, we're not in an era where it's like, oh my God, Okada and Tanahashi are facing again, and at they're still at the height of their powers. Yeah, we're not, and that immediately clicks. We're not we're not excited at the idea of Will Ospreay wrestling just about anyone. We're not in that era. We're not in that New Japan anymore. When it's like Kenny Omega versus anyone, and that kind of stuff. There's not that level of true excitement. I think if you're into the G1 this year, like I am, it's because you are excited at this G1. It's serving as a blueprint for the future, giving us a little insight into the plans, into the ideas, into the people that the company wants to push moving forward. So again, it's right now it's kind of reflective in this attendance. I mean, that is a massive drop. The EDION, it's not a huge arena, if I'm not mistaken. It's not like Sumo Hall where you're, where if you put like 3,000 people in Sumo Hall, it looks and sounds empty. Now see, it's 8,000 people, but I mean it's still, a little more than a fourth of the arena you filled up again. But again, look. Not that I necessarily want to rush to the defense of New Japan and try to make excuses, more importantly, but no one is doing real good in Japan outside of New Japan. This is one of the first years that they've started the G1 off in Osaka as well. So there was a bit of an experiment there, going 2 nights. It was nonetheless a good crowd. Yesterday's crowd was better. This was still a good crowd, but you got to point this out. You got to talk about it. I think it's part of proper, interesting at the very least, wrestling analysis to talk about attendance and how things are going. And 2,000 people, a differential of almost 2,000 people from one night to the other is pretty striking to me. It's pretty striking. And it kind of makes you wonder, on a larger scale, at least in the Tokyo Dome, for instance, over 2 nights as well, how's that going to translate? Conversation for another time. But it does sort of, it clicks here. It clicks something. You don't have Naito in the main event. You could have argued that Zack Sabre Jr. and Tetsuya Naito could have been in the main event. Would it have changed something? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, the match was still on the card, and it drew as improbably. It drew as it did. Oh, anyway, that's where we're at with the attendance. How about some results? How about we talk results for night 2, starting with the A block. SANADA defeated Callum Newman. Gabe Kidd defeated Great Okan. Evil defeated Jake Lee. Shota Umino defeated Shingo Takagi, and Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Tetsuya Naito. And as for B block, we've got HENARE defeating Oleg Boltin. Ren Narita defeated El Phantasmo. Yuya Uemura defeated Hirooki Goto, and the main event, as we mentioned, was Yota Tsuji getting the best from getting the best of, I should say, not out of, but the best of David Finlay. He lost. David Finlay lost, is what I'm saying. In the main event for night 2. So let's talk about the matches. Why don't we? Let's go by block. Yesterday, I was listening over to my audio, because I always do. Not always, but most of the time, I just re-listen like on 2 speed and I listen to, how I approach things and how I structure things. And I think, and it's not even an egotistical thing. It might be, but it's mostly, myself. I want to be able to go back and just listen to how I handled things. And yesterday I was like, all right, I was a little too scattered, giving results, jumping from block to block. Let's keep it within the blocks. I feel that feels more. I won't have this problem over the next few weeks because then it's going to be mostly block exclusive nights. But anyway, that being said, we're doing the results block by the reviews block by block. Let's start with block A then, since it opened the show. Like we said, SANADA defeated Callum Newman. I thought this was pretty good, like a good little match. I don't have much. I really don't. I don't have much to add to this. SANADA is just the most SANADA guy on planet Earth, and Callum Newman looked good here, as much as SANADA can be a giving wrestler. Like I don't know. Like it was fine. There's Newman gets he does the quick pace thing early on, drop kick SANADA off the apron, then SANADA dodges a Norihara moonsault that Newman tries to do. And then SANADA capitalizes and magic killers him off the rails on the floor. Back in the ring, we get a Shining Wizard by SANADA, and it just looked like the comfiest Shining Wizard of all time. It looked like someone threw a pillow in a pillow fight. Wasn't tremendous. He then goes for the moonsault after the Shining Wizard. Newman dodges and hits a running knee. They're dodging in and out of moves. I like the final stretch where they're dodging in and out of moves, but then SANADA lands the deadfall for the win. I think we all saw that coming. Getting some heat back after getting crushed by the smart bastard. Forgot to mention that yesterday. The smart bastard, Jake Lee. Anyway, honestly, I don't have much here. Nothing wrong with the match. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just a good, well wrestled 3-star match. There you go. SANADA is on the board too with his first 2 points of the tournament. HENARE defeated Boltin. Oleg. Now this was good and was strong. I really like this. They're doing tests of strength to begin because they're both hard, tough men, and they're just doing these great strike exchanges on each other. Vader bomb by Oleg, who also does the gut wrencher when he swings the guy around, but he only did it 3 times. Now, maybe HENARE is too much of a big boy to be swinging around like that. He did it 3 times, which is still impressive. Don't get me wrong. He's not going, the usual 7, 8, 9, 10 times, but he's not, wrestling a cruiserweight either or a junior heavyweight. He's wrestling, a bigger dude. So that's fine. He hits the kamikaze on HENARE, but HENARE kicks out. HENARE tries to finish him off with the ultimo, but he can't lock it in because Oleg is a big, strong boy. And this is followed by some strikes and a Streets of Rage by HENARE to close it all up. Fun little match. I thought it was a strong opening. I thought the opening to this match was strong. And I feel like HENARE gave a lot to Oleg. I think this match came across as HENARE being rather, I don't want to say generous, but he was very, he just gave a lot. So I guess that would make him generous. But I don't want to make it sound like, in the entire match he was doing Oleg this tremendous favor. No, Oleg works well. He's a hard worker. So, but I think Oleg came through really good because he got that little extra juice from HENARE just being, very open with stuff. And I wonder if this is going to be the thing moving forward because, Oleg is really, really liked by management. I don't know if you can tell. They really, really like the guy, and I think they see they see a bright future in him. And so when we were talking in the lead up to the G1 and saying, well, guys like Oleg, are going to come in, they're going to take L's all the time, or mostly, or all the time. And they're, but it doesn't matter because they've got something to prove. They've got a chip on their shoulder. They're just, they're one of these guys that just has something that they absolutely have to prove, that they want, that they have a spot to earn, that it's not given to them, and Oleg is absolutely one of these guys. And it just so happens management seems to have his back. Like he seems to have the support of the New Japan brass. I mean, if you couldn't tell that Hiroshi Tanahashi really likes him, I don't know what to tell you. So I'm wondering if this tournament will in part be that. Even if he's in losing situations like he did on this show, are the stories, not necessarily the stories, but is the booking going to be for the other guy to give Oleg as much as possible so that he can look really good in the process, so that you never feel like he's losing downward, that he's putting up great fights and he's looking great in the process? Because there is a way to win upwards in pro wrestling. Someone should tell that to Jey Uso. Great O'Con, Gabe Kidd, excuse me. Wait, I screwed it up, didn't I? I said I was going to go block by block, and then I said I was going to break down everything block by block, and now I'm just going in match order for the results. Oh, who cares? Okay, never mind. We'll do it this way again, and maybe tomorrow I'll be into it. I'll be focused enough. I'll get the little whatever's missing, in my prep. I'll get it done. Christ, you can't say that I'm not here with you can't say that I'm not here with the best intentions, right? You really can't. Look, in any extent, I forgot to say, like, HENARE scored another 2 points. He's up at 4 now, and I gave this match 3.25 stars. Okay, moving on. Great O'Con versus Gabe Kidd. In fact, Gabe Kidd defeated Great O'Con here. So the idea was that Gabe Kidd was ready to fight Great O'Con on his level, which is, a wrestling match. And Great O'Con was like, nah, brother, if you want to just throw down, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. I want to, I'll fight you on your terms, kind of thing. So they both wanted to do that. And what we ended up getting was, more or less mostly a brawl, which I'm completely fine with. But, at first, Kidd is like, when they open up the match, Gabe and O'Con, they're trying to do the grappling thing, go down low, do some groundwork. But no, this goes to the floor, and it goes to the floor, and actually Great O'Con goes into the audience, and he's like, "Come on, Gabe, let's do this." Because Gabe was like, "Nah, let's do it. You wanted a wrestling match? Let's do a wrestling match. I'll fight and beat you on your terms." But Great O'Con's like, "No, let's do it on your terms." And they fight into the audience, and they brawl around for a bit. Here's something interesting. Like Gabe Kidd he calls out Hiromu Takahashi, who is sitting at commentary on the Japanese side of things, and the English commentary team points out that Hiromu recently has sort of been throwing around like, well, I could challenge for open weight titles, kind of thing. And Gabe Kidd is like, all right, let's go. So, just put a pin in that. We'll keep that in the back of your mind for not necessarily later in this review, but later down the line kind of thing. This goes back to the ring. They go back outside. Great O'Con launches Gabe Kidd through a barricade and into some chairs. That was a spectacular visual, not gonna lie. Hell of a bump. Back in the ring for a very short moment as Gabe Kidd suplexes Great-O-Khan on out of the ring and onto the floor. You know, they did the spot where they balance, and it was pretty gnarly. And they fight on the floor. They beat the 20 count. And they sort of did a face at each other when they counted to 19. I'm like, you know, because they were sort of teasing they were going to go to the count out, but they didn't. So when they got to 19, both Great-O-Khan and Gabe Kidd did one of these and went, then they ran to the ring. I'm like, okay, boys. And as they hit the ring, they both start dropping Germans on each other. They land strikes, and Gabe Kidd gets the rebound lariat for the win. So Gabe Kidd is up on the board with his first 2 points in Block A. I thought this was very good. I enjoyed this a lot. Again, I don't have a ton of thoughts behind it, but you know, I think it was well put together. It's a match that ended up playing to Kidd's strengths and was actually spent most of the time of the match outside of the ring than actually inside. And this is not necessarily a complaint, because I feel like when they were in the ring, things were tighter. It made sense, and you were sort of like, okay, there's something. Well, not that there was stuff outside didn't make sense, but you know, everything just came together a lot more for the time that they were in the ring. And then when they were back on the floor, then it'd get wild and woolly. And then, like I said, when they beat the 20 count and they started dropping Germans on each other, I was like, oh, this is great. It's like, this is fantastic stuff. So Gabe Kidd is on the board. Great-O-Khan is not. He is still at 0. Next, we had Ren Narita defeating El Phantasmo. Narita attacks at the bell, but ELP overcomes him. ELP, who is very sad that he has no more friends, except I wonder how Jado feels. I wonder how he feels. You know, ELP, you know, going around going, my friends are gone, and he's standing like there, bro. What am I? You know. So you know, he tosses Ren Narita to the floor, does a plancha, wipes out on a Norihara moonsault because Narita moved out of the way. And then Narita starts to use a chair on El Phantasmo's knee, which of course opens up a weakness for the rest of the match. And it's, you know, I think ELP does a good job selling it as well, being unable to hit his moves, but also when he's doing just like transition-y things, you know, where, you know, he's sort of favoring it. And later on he's limping on it, as opposed to just like, oh, suddenly he can run again. I thought he did a good job with selling the knee in this one here. But you know, he still did, you know, played the hits. He did a cannonball senton into the lion salt. And then you know, Ren Narita mocks, you know, the high tag that Hikuleo and ELP used to do, and that made ELP very angry, you know. And I'm like, and seriously, like, I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, brother, do you think Hikuleo is going to, you know, have boo-boo face when he starts up, you know, in the warehouse, or, you know, SmackDown or whatever? Do you think he's gonna, commentary is gonna put over, oh, well, look, he's very sad because he lost his best friend, you know, he left him behind in Japan? No, like, let's just move on. You know what I mean? And this is what I've been talking about when it comes to El Phantasmo. It's like, I think he's so good, but this, you know, aw shucks kind of thing we have to move on. And I said it yesterday, and I'll say it again today. I was kind of fearful that they were going to do he lost his friend, he's so sad, he's losing his matches because he's a sad boy thing throughout in the tournament. And that seems to be what we're doing. Now, this potentially could mean that he's going to have a comeback route. You know, there's usually one in a block that comes from behind and then ends up, either winning or qualifying, depending on the year you watch, right? So the only silver lining that I see here is that he might be in the conversation to move forward into the playoffs for the block, for Block B. But in the meantime, I gotta say, we gotta move on from this very quickly because we're very close to the melodrama, and I am not interested in that in the slightest bit. I kind of hope if you want to stretch it out for another match, that's fine. I'm giving y'all 1 to 2 matches to sort this out because he's got to come back soon and he's got to be fired up and he's got to start, winning matches, throwing people around, being just mad. I mean, you're in a tournament to headline Wrestle Kingdom and you're like, I'm so sad because my tag team partner, got a job thanks to his brother. Just saying. So Ren Narita gets his first 2 out of this. I gave this match, but I enjoyed this match. Don't get me wrong. I give it 3 1/4. I didn't. Oh yeah, it finishes with after ELP does a Frankensteiner and a Thunder Kiss 86. Ren Narita does an X Factor for the winner, whatever he calls it. Probably the this soulless crusher, or something like that. I know he has a name for it. I just don't know what it is. I don't remember. I don't really care. It's an X Factor. It's fine. Well, So Ren Narita gets his first 2 points on the board. ELP still at 0. Block A action happened next, where Evil defeated Jake Lee. Probably the match I was least looking forward to of the entire show, and it turned out to be the match that I disliked the most of the entire show. Jake Lee's on a streak. 2 in a row. It was my least favorite match from night 1, and now it is my least favorite match from night 2. And even in Evil's case, I thought Evil was so much better yesterday than what we saw. Like this, look, let's start with the match, right? And it starts off like everyone's gonna be. The Evil tries to get Jake Lee to do the to too sweet him, but he tries to get him to too sweet him because they're all Bullet Club, but then Jake Lee sort of eye pokes both Evil and Dick Togo. I'm like, okay, so Jake Lee, because he's a smart bastard. I don't know if you've heard. And it spills to the floor, and Evil goes after him. There's interference from Dick Togo, and which allows Evil to lock in the Darkness Scorpion. And there's a little miscommunication as well between Evil and Jake Lee. And then they do the bell thing while Jake Lee has Evil in a submission, where Dick Togo goes and rings the bell, and then Jake Lee thinks he's won, because he's not that much of a smart bastard. Then there's a ref bump and he gets choked out by the garrote. No, and he chokes out Evil with the garrote, and it goes back and forth. The point here is that he chokes out Evil with the garrote. Then as the referee's sort of regaining his senses, he tosses the garrote to Evil, and then he falls on his back. He bumps, he takes a flat back, and a bit of a Eddie Guerrero light cheat and steal thing. And I'm like, are we still doing this? No. He did this to set up the idea that Evil was choking him out because you see Jake Lee is a smart bastard. But there's full-on interference. Like, there's interference throughout this match, and Dick Togo allows Evil to land the Darkness Falls and win. Like, okay, first things first. Yesterday, I was pondering the idea that, look, the Ren Narita match that he had yesterday against, who was it again? Against Boltin, had virtually no shenanigans. Like, you know, Narita tried to cheat, right? He cheated, but he didn't end up winning, right? And Evil, his match as well, like, was not laden with interference. I thought he had a really solid match with Gabe Kidd, and you know, I'm still surprised that I was sitting here recommending it to everyone yesterday, but it was very, very good. So I pondered yesterday that maybe Tanahashi is living up to, he's putting his money where his mouth is when it comes to his 10-point plan, right? And specifically in the point where he said that he was going to cut down on interference, that he was going to make sure that transgressors would be fined and whatnot, which I always thought was kind of a kayfabe kind of way to address it. But then I was like, oh, maybe that's what. But look, I look at what happened today, and I'm like, all right, no, we're still in the same boat. We're still chugging along with House of Torture, doing absolute garbage, and I don't know what to tell you. And on top of that, then you have Jake Lee, the smart bastard. I think this was the story of the match, to establish the fact that he is a smart bastard. Well, he got suckered into a couple of things. I don't know how much of a smart bastard he really is. If he's fallen for the most, if the tricks he tries to do aren't landing and he gets suckered in by Evil, well, you know, who's the smart one? Who's the smart bastard now? Jake Lee. And beyond the fact that, you know, people say Shota Umino looks like he doesn't want to be there, you know, like he seems always uninterested and aloof, you know, that he could be doing anything else right now. That's the impression he always gives or often gives. Jake Lee is exactly that. What people pin really hard on Shota Umino is actually happening in the case of Jake Lee. I swear, folks, I do not understand, and I am continuing to keep an open mind. I want to be able to see what others see in this circumstance. There's not many people in my circles that can articulate a proper Jake Lee defense. Most of the time they're like, yeah, we'll concede that. Yeah, we'll concede that. Yes, we'll concede that. But he's tall. That's usually it. And the people who do stick up for Jake Lee in my circles usually are, you know, they're memeing. They're just making jokes. And this all despite the fact that I have Jake Lee going all the way to the block finals. Because I recognize that that management likes him, that New Japan likes him. They had him beat SANADA in less than 5 minutes last night. Former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion SANADA in less than 5 minutes. Don't think that wasn't significant. Anyway, that's enough Jake Lee chit chat for now. We're going to do that a lot more throughout the course of the tournament, so we'll save some for later. Back to Block B, Yuya Uemura defeated Hirooki Goto. I thought this was just friggin' solid. You know, Goto is in there being the veteran who's got a chip on his shoulder, you know, who's tired of all these kids coming in and all this talk about the new generation, and you know, he just wants to screw people up. And he comes in, I might be exaggerating. No, but he comes in here saying, you know, I'm going to teach you a lesson, kid. That's how this match felt like. It felt like, you know, the sensei sounds better. That sounds right, actually. This match was the sensei, you know, teaching his prize pupil a lesson. That's how this came across as. And Uemura just fighting from beneath, does what he can, and then all of a sudden, he eats an Ushigoroshi out of nowhere, and they have this tremendous chop exchange at some point, big lariat, and a GTW by Goto. Uemura takes Goto down with a huge headbutt, and then lands the deadbolt suplex for the win. So, good, strong showing by both guys here again. And Uemura, I thought looked really good and was very good in this highly physical match. And I'll tell you what, Uemura, I sneakily here right now, is showing off these tremendous, and I mentioned it yesterday, but I think it bears being underscored here specifically, even more so today. His white meat babyface chops here were on display. They were full on display in this match, where he's fighting from beneath and he's rallying the crowd just with his expressions, with the offense that he's trying to do, but the other guy always comes over and it manages to get one over on him. He's really coming into his own, and I think this is a good sneaky detail that I don't know if it's intentional or not, if they're trying it out. All I know is that it's working and the crowd is into it. Like this might be his lane, this might be his thing, where he's the guy who fights from underneath. He might be that kind of babyface. Why not? It works. It works for him tremendously. And he got another 2 points. He's 4 points up on the leaderboard right now for Block B. 3.5 stars from me for this match. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Next match we had was more Block A action. Shota Umino defeated Shingo Takagi. And I was kind of surprised by the result. I was surprised by the result. I thought after Shingo's win yesterday that we were maybe gonna see a rampage from the rampage. I'm not gonna do that. But I thought that that they were lining it up for a couple of consecutive wins, coming off strong after beating the champ, kind of thing. But no, they decided to give one to Umino here. This one starts up fast with some strikes, and Shingo drops him on the apron, trying to take advantage of his injuries, his hip injury, his back injury. Umino fights back, lands a slingshot DDT on the apron. And Shingo fights back as well, lands a snap suplex right in the buckle. I really liked it too. Folded. Umino ended up, when he landed, he ended up folding over himself. That was good. Avalanche Exploder suplex by Umino, and a superplex by Takagi. A torture rack by Takagi as well follows. That was just basic stuff. He's working the, making sure that we all understand that the Umino's back is an issue, his hips are an issue. And I mean, look, listen, look and listen. The idea that that Umino, and I'm not discrediting. Hang on, I'm trying to say too many things at once. It happens at least once an episode, right? I'm not trying to discredit the idea that, well, yes, I am kind of trying to discredit the idea that Umino was injured. What am I talking about? Why am I putting on kid gloves here? I still kind of think that the slip disc and the broken hip thing was a bit of a work. I remember not that long ago, a wrestler in New Japan telling us, that he had that it was reported that a wrestler in New Japan was wrestling with some slip discs. And everyone I had talked to who had once had a slip disc was telling me straight on, if that guy has a slip disc, he would not be doing a fraction of what he's doing right now because he would be in constant fucking pain. And here we've got Shota Umino, doing his offense, doing superplexes. And I'm supposed to sit here and believe that, he's coming back from a slip disc. A month or so after it was announced. Look, all I'm saying, I'm not saying that it's an absolute work 100%. And I know he had the very specific x-rays, right? And like sometimes I find it weird that wrestlers share their x-rays. Sometimes I find it's a little weird. Just maybe it's because I've been at this not at this specifically, but I've been watching pro wrestling for so long and being, reading and keeping up with stuff and, dirt sheets and news sites and all of that. But pro wrestlers, they're professional liars. They're going to do whatever it takes to make you feel something for them, get themselves over, or, just create a narrative around them that benefits them in some way. And I think there is a benefit for Shota Umino to craft a narrative around the fact that I'm coming into this this tournament and I might be a little hurt. I might be fresh off and I think, back issues is a good, it's a good injury to use because it can be applicable on pretty much everything you do as a pro wrestler, where it's like, oh, he tried to do a drop kick, but his back. Oh, he tried to do a superplex, but his back. Oh, he tried to do a DDT, but his back. Like you can apply that on everything, So it's a kind of a good catch-all kind of injury. But outside of Shota specifically, when wrestlers share X-rays of their injuries, I'm always naturally dubious. I'm like, is that really, like, between us all? I always, I use Google Lens every time, or back in the day I would do a reverse Google image search to make sure that this was not just yanked off of a a Facebook page, off of someone, and because in this business where you usually everything is so typically opaque, like you don't, the curtains are pulled tight even today, even though kayfabe is dead, and even though social media makes things a little more open, there are things that happen that no one knows about, that have not been reported, that will never be spoken about in a public forum. So I find it strange that wrestlers would be so comfortable putting out X-rays of their injuries, of their broken bones. Why do you need to confirm to me so hard that you are injured? Again, this is just maybe because I have wrestling brain in these types of situations. And maybe some of the wrestlers just do it out of pure good faith. And I think it's different than from them posting pictures of them, recovering from surgery. Or from surgery or from an injury, like with a cast in their hospital bed, or just waking up from surgery. Like that's different. Those are two different things. Just a straight up picture of X-rays to me is like, man, what a hard sell. What are you trying to tell me? What's really going on? Maybe I'm just too distrustful in that regard. But I think, if Shota Umino is kind of working his injury, it's good for him because he turned into a talking point. People were worried that he wasn't going to be able to make it, so that keeps a little buzz, a little flame, right? And then he releases the video on New Japan World, not on New Japan World, on the ex-formerly Twitter thing, where he announces the day before the press conference, or 2 days before the press conference, like, I'm going to make it. And like, oh, isn't that convenient? Uh, you know, it's a nice little narrative he's constructed for himself, and then it's a nice little narrative they can use in the ring. That's all I'm saying. It's, you know, it's not this great big conspiracy. It's not something extremely evil and awful. And I've seen it before in pro wrestling. I just get naturally on the defense when pro wrestlers do this kind of stuff, because I'm like, okay, what's really going on? I get naturally suspicious. So maybe he did get really injured, but I cannot imagine him wrestling with slip discs, or, you know, having a slip disc that got better within a month, unless there's this new super serum that exists that they just inject into the spinal cord, and your spinal cord, you know, remains, you know, keeps its integrity, but, you know, suddenly is like jelly, so it can do things that it doesn't usually do without causing pain. I don't know. It's just, it's weird. I spend too much time ranting about this. Anyway, so, you know, they're Shingo's doing the torture rack. That's what we were talking about. He does a Noshigami made in Japan. You know, Shingo did the Takagi driver 98 yesterday, and today he's bringing back the Noshigami. Like, it's like Shingo's bringing back all the old school moves here. He's digging deep. Cradle DDT by Umino. What would you call the Noshigami an old school move? Like, I think he was still doing it like about a year ago. Maybe it's not. But look, moves he hasn't done in a while. I don't remember the last time he did the TD 98, honestly. Umino mounts his comeback Blaze Blade, and shortly thereafter, a snap Death Rider gets him the win. I was a little surprised, I'm not going to lie, but this was good. Kind of expected more out of this, and I sort of touched on this yesterday, and I'm going to circle back to that, but I kind of expected more out of these two guys, and especially Shota, because he's one of these young guys that's supposed to carry the company, and I don't know. I think I saw people very low on this. Cage Match gave this a 7.32, which I think is fair. I gave this 3.5. Like, again, like, I'm going to sound like I'm bummed out, but I like the match. I gave it 3.5 myself. But again, it's like, I feel I should be getting more for my money out of a Shingo Takagi Shota Umino match. Or maybe they were straight up told, don't steal the show. But it's still weird. There was a show. No one stole the show. You know, anyone could have just like performed the heist here and steal the show. It wouldn't have offended anyone, really. But yeah, I expect more out of this. I expect more out of Shingo because it's Shingo, and I expect more out of Shota because he's one of the three, and he's supposed to be one of the guys who carries the company, and they clearly like him. Maybe there's other stuff going on that we're not privy to. I don't know, but he did get a win, so that's significant. That means something. He got his first, so he gets his first 2 points, he being Shota, so he's on the board. Shingo stays at 2. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Tetsuya Naito. I really like this match. I thought this was kind of great. I thought this was very, very good. And they're doing close surprise near falls early on, and Zack Sabre Jr. gets the submission game going. Naito works the neck. Of course he does. They go to the floor. Naito does a hanging neck breaker. Back in the ring, he does a big Esperanza on Zack. Just, you know, perfectly executed, great, fantastically sold. And I'm looking at this to continue on my conversation from yesterday. I'm like, why isn't this his goddamn finisher? Like, you're dropping someone vertically on his head. There we go. We're good. Then Naito, after the Esperanza, gets twisted up into some Zack Sabre Jr. submissions, who also lands a PK. Naito reverses out of a move with a Destino, but doesn't do the cover. Zack driver follows, but Zack Sabre Jr. can't cover either. His shoulder, like all this upper part, is hurting because Naito's been working it over. And then he gets clobbered by the short arm elbows. Big series of near falls that leads to Zack Sabre Jr. getting Naito into a clutch and getting the 3 count. Clean as a whistle. So like I said, this is a this is a 4-star match for me. And the Destinos look good, but I think, he had the kind of opponent that can help out quite a bit. Zack is a hyper aware pro wrestler. He's very good at what he does. So I think there's some of that. It makes me wonder, this match happening here. Well, first of all, Zack pinned the champion. And not only did he pin the champion, but he immediately ran out the ring and went straight for the IWGP World title and started parading with it, right? And walked right up to the hard cam, went through the audience, walked right up to the hard cam and posed with the title, right? He wanted to make sure that this was a reality, right? That's very interesting to me. Because if you listen to my preview shows, because there are 2, you can check them out. They're out there on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast. One of them is on YouTube only, by the way, just so you know. But nonetheless, if you listen to those, and if you know where my brain's at with the G1 this year, this match here was this match right here was my Wrestle Kingdom vision. Tetsuya Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. in the Dome. And I've expressed multiple times why I think Zack might be the guy. And there are, because I think he's one of the guys who can make sure that Naito has Naito has a good to potentially great match. If Naito is ready to show up as well, it goes both ways. But Zack can contribute, and Zack in the Dome could be a fresh. Could be a fresh alternative to whatever we've seen. He's never main evented a Wrestle Kingdom show. He'd be in there with Naito, who's got a main event. He's the biggest draw the company has. But without putting up one of the young guys who are still, the crowd is still warming up to, clearly. Because you put Yota Tsuji in the main event here tonight, 2,000 less people decided to come to the show than yesterday. I think that's significant. So, maybe you do want to hedge your bets on that. Maybe you want to hedge your bets on someone who's been around for a while, who the audience already knows, who can pretty much guarantee that the match that we're going to get is, the floor is like 4 stars, right? Who's not one of the young crop, but is fresh enough to feel new, if that makes sense. That's where my head is at. So when I saw that this match was happening, I was very curious to see how this was going to go down, because I'm like, well, if this is the Wrestle Kingdom match, they can't do everything here. They're not going to lay it all out here. But as expected, Zack and Naito had a really good match, a great little match that they had. I'm going 4, just because I can't go 3.9 because you know what I mean? Because I want to stay on the quarter stars, but I think it's a higher 3.75, a high 3.25 star or a low 4 star, if that makes sense. So I was curious to see how this was going to go. And I was thinking to myself, well, is this like a test, right? Is this a test? And now that Zack Sabre Jr. got the win, because I wasn't expecting Zack Sabre Jr. to win. I was expecting him to win the G1 to get his title shot against Naito. So now he has a shot at the title pretty much anytime. So does Shingo as well. So, I'm sort of, curious. I'm curious to see what the next steps here are. And seeing Zack make such a big deal out of the belt after, like going straight for it, posing, I'm like, hey, are we trying something out here? And I liked it. I like this kind of stuff. And it's not above Zack Sabre Jr. to do this kind of stuff. It's perfectly in persona. Makes perfect sense. I don't hate it. And to me, I'm like, yeah, this kind of works. This works for me. So I don't know. I'm still very confident, nonetheless, with Zack Sabre Jr. winning. And I think they had I think that, look, if this was a preview or a tryout match or a let's see what we could do at the Tokyo Dome. Let's throw the foundations down, brother. We're in good hands. I give it, like I said, a 4-star match. And Zack Sabre Jr. scores another 2 points, so he's up to 4. And Naito's still at 0. Of course, the question will always be, well, not will always be, but right up until we do get there, can Zack draw? But can Zack draw if Naito was there? But Naito was on this card with Zack, and they still lost in the semi-main event, and 2,000 people decided to stay home. So whose fault is this ultimately? You could look at that and say, yes, the main event was Finlay versus Tsuji, but we still had a potential Tokyo Dome main event in Zack Sabre Jr. and Tetsuya Naito, and it didn't generate interest, regardless. So maybe the Japanese audience isn't as into it as I am. And then finally, Yota Tsuji defeated Dave Finlay. Starts off this match going all lucha libre. Finlay just wants to piss him off. He spits on him. So how does Tsuji respond? With a stinger splash. Finlay fights back. Does a suplex. Tsuji gets back in control until Finlay drop kicks him off the apron, lands a Dominator as well. Tsuji fights back with some stomps and a huge knee strike and the Falcon Arrow. Finlay interrupts a spear attempt and lands the Into Oblivion move. Finlay fires up, buckle bomb and a power bomb. They're throwing everything at each other. Then we get the Gene Blast, followed by the Marlowe Crash. His jumping, his stomp off the ropes, off the turnbuckle, right? The Marlowe Crash. Terrific match. Terrific hard-hitting match. Great stuff. I like very little notes about it. Other than I was kind of hoping for another gear, but I'm very satisfied with this match. Was it a tremendous main event? Well, no, probably not. I still give it 4 stars. I thought it was very good. I thought it was a great little main event. Was it, again, is it going to set the pace for the G1 moving forward? No. But I'm sitting here with 2 nights in a row where I've got David Finlay on some of my top-rated matches. Shocking, I know, but here we are. And look, Finlay is one of the guys that I had talked about in the preview where he may be one of these guys where he's, he's not that old guard and he's not the young guys coming in. He's sort of sandwiched between, and he's like, look, I'm struggling for this spot already. If it's time to show up, I'm going to show up. If this G1 is about staking a claim on stuff, well, here we go. Let's do it. But in the meantime, he still has 0 points, and he is the global champion. Boy, that Nick Nemeth run sure shook him. Got him shook. So as far as recommendations go, I mean, I'm not as enthusiastic as I was last night, and I don't feel like... Look, the 2 best matches on the show were the top of the card. But even then, I'm like, you can skip these. But if you can skip these if you want. But if you want to sit down and like, no, I'd really want to watch a little bit of the G1. Well, do Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. and Yota Tsuji versus David Finlay. Those were the 2 best matches on this card, which I thought was okay. I don't think it had that spark, that sense of urgency, that night 1 had. Wasn't bad. Wasn't like suddenly I'm feeling like everyone is mailing in the effort. Hopefully that won't happen until, night 6 or something. Which is usually when we start getting into the dog days, right? But those would be my recommendations. That's what I'd go for. But in fact, I'd tell you, well, if you just want to sit this one out, that's cool too. But if you absolutely just want to, dip your toes, keep your lips moist with a little G1, then go ahead and dip your lips into those 2 matches. Oh, but Warren, you did not talk about the Kanuski Takeshita on this show. Well, that's because he wasn't on the show. That's an easy one. Because he was wrestling in DDT, was honoring a date last night. New Japan accommodated that, so the Jeff Cobb Kanuski Takeshita match is going to be happening tomorrow, I believe. We'll check the schedule in a second, but yeah, we're gonna nail that one, get that one out of the way before the next showing, before the next time B Block shows up, is what I'm trying to say. As far as rankings go, Evil and Zack Sabre Jr. right now are at the top of Block A with 4 points apiece. Of course, there's the log jam at 2, but I think, interesting to note that Great Khan and Tetsuya Naito are both still with the goose egg. I think it's interesting to note at this point. On B Block, we've got Yuya Uemura and HENARE up there with 4 points. Everyone else with, and then a whole bunch of people, not everyone else, but a whole bunch of people with 2. You'll probably be able to add either Konosuke Takeshita or Jeff Cobb at the top of the list, at the top of B Block, because we still have that match. So there's one match still that hasn't occurred in B Block, so the standings aren't as precise. We'll get we'll get those good final standings for B Block tomorrow, right? Isn't it tomorrow? Let's take a look at the schedule. Let's break that down right now. July 25. I'm saying tomorrow, but it's July 23, which is going to be on Tuesday. There's no G1 tomorrow, July 22nd. So I've been saying tomorrow, but I meant Tuesday. So from the Hiroshima Sun Plaza in Hiroshima, it will be Jeff Cobb and Konosuke Takeshita on for B Block in what otherwise is going to be just an evening of A Block action. So we're going to move into that pattern, not for the rest of the tournament, but for a substantial amount of the tournament, where it's just going to be block exclusive action. So on the 23rd, we're going to get Block A matches. Callum Newman versus Zack Sabre Jr. Zack Sabre Jr. should continue to solidify his place at the top of A Block with that. Shingo Takagi versus Great Khan. Shota Umino versus Gabe Kidd. Oh boy. I forgot to mention when Gabe Kidd finished the match and cut his promo on, an in-camera promo to Shota Umino. and he was saying that he hates him, and calls him a slime. He called him slimy and other qualifiers. A few other adjectives followed as well. From what I understand, there is some legit bad blood between the two, and I'm into it. Like, if this means that these guys are going to hit each other a little harder, if it means that these guys are gonna kick each other a little harder, they're gonna drop each other a little more on their heads. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that. I think it's fine. Let's go. Personal issues are always good in pro wrestling. Trust me. So that's gonna happen next. That's going to happen on Tuesday. I'm very excited to see that match. SANADA versus Evil is not one I'm actually necessarily excited to watch. Nor am I excited to watch Tetsuya Naito versus Jake Lee. So there's Block A on Tuesday, I feel is going to be a little rough. Just looking at the lineup here, I think it's going to be a little rough. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll shock the pants off of us. After all, Konosuke Takeshita's on the show, and I'm telling you, this Umino Gabe Kid match might have a little extra oomph to it. I don't know about the rest, man. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see in just a couple of days. And and we'll be back at that time on Tuesday, which, by the way, just happens to be the day that I record the Mr. Warren Hayes Show live, the wrestling podcast that I usually do, which I record live right here on the YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Eastern. So we're keeping schedule. You'll get the G1 CLIMAX review earlier in the day, and then later on, we're hitting the live stream to record the podcast. So it's going to be a big, busy day of pro wrestling talk for your boy. But you know what? I wouldn't want it any other way. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. Likes, reviews, ratings, all that stuff would be appreciated just before we go. That covers everything. I'll see you next time, which is Tuesday.